and welcome to the next tour with
Ian?
and Andia. We're happy to have you here today. This is episode 29, Transition with an Expat with Mike Manion. So, Mike, we're super happy to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, and thanks for having me on.
We're so excited to dig into this topic because our last episode, we talked about RVing around America, and this one's a little bit different, but I think also still a really fun topic. So, a little bit about Mike. He actually was in service for 29 years, 3 years as a reservist in the Army, and then 26 years active duty Air Force, which is, of course, where our paths crossed. And he retired in October of 2021 and as a brigadier general. So, congratulations. I should
Thank you.
probably call you general.
No, please, please.
So, and now in your civilian life, you are fully retired, which I think is awesome and the dream for sure. So, you were an electronic warfare officer and also a wing commander, which is again where we ran into you. So, again, thanks for being here today. And we're going to just jump right in. So, we're so excited about this topic.
Yeah. Well, sir, buongiorno. Welcome from Italy, which
Buongiorno.
again is exactly why we're talking about you with you today. So, again, if you'd like to say hi to the audience real quick, please, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Yes, my name's Mike Manion. If we crossed paths in the Air Force, you probably knew me as Gravy. I spent most of my career flying on the MC-130 and the RC-135 and the EC-130. But as Ian and Andia mentioned, a few years ago in retirement, my wife and I, Shannon, decided to take a slightly different path. And that path led us to full-time retirement. And we currently live in Italy, in northern Italy, and are just kind of living that immigrant and expat life. I'm excited today to talk, to answer any questions, or to maybe explain that there's a different path out there than most people take in retirement.
Absolutely. And it is. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit about your story and how you and Shannon got to where you're at. If you could just pull a little bit more on that thread, what really, I think, pulled you to want to live overseas full time, as an expat?
Well, the story kind of goes back to the retirement decision. And I think that's probably where most people kind of come at a big crossroads in their life. I was quite enjoying my Air Force career and having a great time. My wing commander tour ended off at Air Force Base in Nebraska in 2019, and then I got a follow-on assignment to the Pentagon. And as many folks know that have been assigned to the National Capital Region, specifically the Pentagon, it can be a real love-hate relationship with that job. You're going to be working with great people and doing great things, but there's a real grind to that. And that's exactly kind of like my scenario. I enjoyed what I was doing, I enjoyed the folks I was working with, but the grind of the Pentagon, along with some challenges of COVID at the time, led us to make a decision in October of 2020 to request retirement. That retirement was granted for the follow-on year of October of 2021. And so that kind of gave us about 11 months of runway to decide what to do next or how to do retirement. And we just decided that we maybe wanted to do something a little bit different. Shannon and I had become pretty interested in the FIRE community, the financially independent retire early, and watched some videos on it. And of course, my bachelor's degree is in finance, so I've always enjoyed finance type stuff, business type stuff. So the FIRE community kind of appealed to me, and fell into watching some YouTube videos about it, and that also led us to kind of stumble upon folks that were living this nomadic life. It was retirement, but being perpetually nomadic. And we thought, wow, that sounds pretty exciting, because as a military retiree, you really kind of have a couple of variables dialed in from the very beginning. You know almost to the penny what you're going to make in retirement, because that's a simple calculation. So you know exactly kind of like what the inflow is going to be, and we can even control the variable pretty much for the healthcare. Right? Because we know we have TRICARE, we know there's a TRICARE Select premium or a TRICARE Prime premium or whatever, and you can kind of factor all of that in. So we thought, oh my gosh, the equation of financially independent, retire early, and nomadic life was kind of figured out as long as we could control our expenses. So we
Mhm.
thought, let's give it a go. Let's decide to just live nomadically, at least for maybe 1 year, give it a go. I was a bit nervous about finding a job anyways. I'd been through a couple of the transition courses, and to be honest, I was a little bit petrified about doing a resume, sitting down for interviews. And again, along the same lines of the job at the Pentagon, gosh, I did not want to follow the route of working in the defense industry to potentially work
Mhm.
for a defense prime or something like that. And God bless those that do, because they need the expertise from the military folks. But I wasn't sure that was going to be a path for me. So I kind of punted to the easiest course of action, which was to do nothing in retirement except travel. So,
Yeah, hooray.
it's summer of 2021. We do our final out. I start terminal leave. Our stuff is packed up out of Washington, D.C., and we decided to hit the road then and there in the summer of 2021.
Well, that's epic. And just, being able to have that freedom, but you hit on a couple of really key points that, we've tried to thread through a lot of our episodes, planning and honest discussions with yourself, with your family on, what the requirements and the capabilities are, and then being able to just set a goal out there and realize it. And I think that's really what we all strive for. So I really appreciate you, kind of unpacking that a little bit and talking about how you two achieved the dream. That's
Yeah,
epic.
and there was a little bit, it was more than just an equation too, as well. I kind of considered a little bit of a Venn diagram in that, you know, Shannon and I were in good health. Our parents are in good health. My mom got sick, but my sister was there in my hometown to kind of take care of my mom if something happened. Our kids were at university or post university and working, and we had no grandbabies. So if you think about those four variables, there's a very small window in your life where those four things kind of line up. You have health, your parents are doing okay, the kids are working, and are paying for their own insurance and cell phone bills, and you don't have grandbabies. So all of that, again, kind of factored into that decision of, gosh, if we don't do it now, that window will close. There'll always be a reason to buy a house and live in the suburbs and get into the grind, So we thought, gosh, this is our small window. Let's just take a leap of faith and go for it.
You
That's
hit a bullseye.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So I have to admit I'm slightly jealous of this because
A lot jealous.
well yeah, we're already planning for this in the future to do something like this and travel a lot. We love to travel. So I think but for me, like always when I think about these things, when I think about traveling for any length of time, I get stuck in the logistics and the details. I'm very detail oriented sort of person. Like I'm always thinking about the logistics, the financial, which
Hmm.
obviously you guys took a lot into consideration, but also the like legalities of having this nomadic lifestyle and then settling abroad and sort of thinking about those pieces of it. So like logistics, financial you talked a little bit about, but like how did some of those things all fit together? I mean, you did talk about TRICARE. There is a system for expatriates for those living abroad with TRICARE. And so yeah, I'd love to just dig into those details a little bit more because I do think that like there are other people out there like me that get stuck in the details of things.
Yeah. You know, s- so there are a few things to talk about or to think about for those considerations. During our transition, we made sure that we were still set up in TRICARE East, and we kind of had a couple of choices. We had family on the East Coast that we could use for TRICARE and a place to send mail, and we also had a family on the West Coast, so we could go TRICARE East or TRICARE. So we made sure that we got kind of established in a stateside region for sure, so that can continue. But we did really simple things like making sure that we both set up our TRICARE overseas, so we could log in through the portal and send the necessary forms in. So if we needed reimbursement while we were traveling, so we could kind of take care of that. So we had that first year of free household goods storage, right? So we knew we had 1 year on the U.S. government's dime to really sort that out. So we were able to just kind of put some stuff in storage and just leave with suitcases. And we had a way of transferring all of our mail so that a family member could open the piece of mail. If we had a parking ticket from Arlington, Virginia, they could catch up with us for that type of stuff. So once we got that all settled, we were fairly comfortable with that. Now, because I left on terminal leave, the military really likes you to get your retirement ID card on the day you retire or the day before. So it's September 30th, October 1st of 2021, my official retirement date, and I'm in Cusco, Peru, getting ready to start the Inca Trail to go to Machu Picchu a couple days away. And I go on to kind of check some things out. And I had not transferred to becoming a retiree. I was kind of in the wind with TRICARE. They didn't know where I was. I had to fax some forms and run around Cusco for about a day and a half to kind of get some things in to prove to the government that I was retired, because there's something about that retirement ID card that actually triggers a lot through the system, if that kind of makes sense. So that was a little bit of a hiccup, but yeah, we kind of work through that a little bit.
Yeah.
But as we spent and started traveling that nomadic life, I will say after about a year of bouncing around South America and England for a while, and then we did 90 days in Europe for the Schengen for that we can stay for 90 days at a time. We found ourselves being exhausted with the logistics. Exactly what you just said. The logistics were really wearing us down. Like, gosh, we found a place to stay for a month, but then that would mean that we had to go somewhere else for a month. We became a little bit tired of, geez, this place in Lisbon, the air conditioner doesn't work and it's hot. This place on the Isle of Skye in Scotland doesn't have sharp knives, and we had planned to stay in it and cook for those couple of weeks. This place in Glasgow has really, really lumpy pillows and a hard bed. I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
fill in the blank between South America and Europe. And as you bounce Airbnbs and hotels and stuff, we found ourselves worn down by the logistics and also a bit worn down by some of the inconsistencies, right? And that's exciting to bounce around, but it also kind of wore us down. And
Yeah.
that's eventually what led us to explore the possibility of actually planting a flag and trying to immigrate and become a expat in another country.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. And just some of the things that, yeah, you wouldn't think of. So kind of to further explore that idea, you talked about the ID card, triggering some things. What other major things did you end up, finding that you didn't plan for or didn't really even consider that kind of hit you as you made the full-time transition to become a full expat?
Yeah. Well, the first was the ID card. That was a small kind of hurdle. And, there's always a bit of friction as you try to do the track here overseas for the reimbursement, because you have to pay up front and then get the reimbursement. That's always a bit of a challenge. And eventually your year of household goods storage runs out. So you've got to either continue to pay at the government rate to your storage facility, or you've got to take delivery of that. So we eventually reached kind of some points where we really had to make some decisions and to kind of work through a little bit of that type of friction. But it wasn't actually insurmountable. It was just kind of like small bits and bobs as we went along. Now, when we made the decision to attempt to settle full time in Italy, that's a bureaucratic process that
Mhm.
you could probably do a separate episode on because, I love being here and I love the culture and stuff, but the Italians are quite known for a kind of a Gordian knot of bureaucracy at times. It kind of rivals the Pentagon, if you've ever been. So, but yeah, so we
Things tend to move a little slower there too.
yes. Yeah, yeah, they have a saying, and again, if any of my Italian friends are seeing this or listening to this podcast or seeing this on YouTube, I'm not disparaging at all, but there is a term that's often used in Italy of domani, domani, tomorrow, Mike, tomorrow, tomorrow. Everything can often be solved tomorrow. The weather will change, or let's have some coffee first, and at times that can be frustrating to our kind of American charge ahead attitude. But gosh, once you settle into it, you begin to realize that there is a lot. There's a lot of goodness in slowing down.
There's a lot that can be done tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Well, so doing that, I can only imagine, from a citizenship perspective in the U.S. to maintain it, right? Citizenship, if you so desire, you want to apply for dual citizenship and a different passport in a country that you live abroad in. How do you file and pay for taxes? What about investments, and how do you report all that stuff? I can only imagine that those are some of those bureaucratic things that you talk about, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what you kind of have to kind of think through, right? Like it seems quite romantic. We've seen movies like Under the Tuscan Sun, or we've read that book, about this like glamorous life of moving abroad to Italy or to France or to the UK or wherever. But there are some hurdles. In our scenario, I told Shannon, as she survived the last, I don't know, 10 years or 8 years of my Air Force career, I said, listen, if we make it to the end, you can decide where we retired to. Because I was pretty agnostic to where that would be, right? And I said, you make that decision, and I will flex, because she supported me while I spent a year in Turkey. She supported me as a wing commander, so she was always there, and she always had to recycle her career and kind of think of different things to do. So about a year into that nomadic journey, literally at the Isle of Skye, we had just finished this great walk in Scotland, and we were just trying to like rest a little bit after this hike. And Shannon goes, I want to move to Italy. I've decided. And I was like, well, we haven't even, like, we as a couple, we had not visited, right? We hadn't been there. She's like, yeah, I was in Italy 25 years ago with some girlfriends after college, and we loved it. And I was like, they were on the lira back then. I was like, and but she did some research, and we fell right into a visa that they call the pensioner's visa, which is
Okay.
basically,
Mhm.
if you have enough passive income, you are a strong candidate for this type of visa. And so we researched it and did all the paperwork, filed through the consulate at Boston to obtain the pensioner's visa. We were approved, but one kind of hurdle to apply for that visa is Italy. Before you can be accepted, Italy must know you have a place to stay. Right? They're like, we're not going to let you into our country to stay if you don't have a home. So you either have to buy a home or have a 12-month lease on a property.
Wow.
Yeah, so kind of the cart before the horse a little bit, or the chicken and the egg. So we had to find a house first, and there are some complications with renting, as a non-military type guy, like just as a civilian trying to find a house to rent. So we quickly found that might be too big of a hurdle. So we actually found a house first, bought the house, and then started the process through the consulate. And home buying in
Wow.
Italy, home buying in here is a lot different, a lot more challenging in some ways, but simpler in other ways. Like, why send money to an escrow account when you can just wire money directly to the seller? You know,
Right.
you know, and
Okay.
I'm about to send this money to this account now, and that's just something you just kind of, have to kind of trust. But anyways,
Right.
we just really kind of went through that process, found the house, applied for the visa, and then once we got the visa, arrived back here, kind of set up our home, and then started the application for the residency. So the visa gets you into the door, and then you apply for residency, and then you can kind of keep going from there. Again,
Yeah.
lots of hurdles along the way, but just a lot of patience. And you have to realize that things are just done here a little bit different, but that's not bad. That's not bad that that it's different than the States, you know. And it has given me loads and loads of empathy for what being an immigrant can be like, right? Because
Mm.
we are full-fledged immigrants trying to make it, you know, in a different culture, a different society, a different country, and it requires some patience at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
incredible perspective,
Yeah.
and thanks for kind of, like, at least hitting the wave top on some of those things, and as you mentioned, yeah, maybe we can do a follow-up episode if, at some point and talk about some of the nuances specifically of, going down the path of, applying for residency in a different country as a full-time expat, but
Yeah,
yeah.
so just thinking about the nomadic lifestyle and like settling, of course, in northern Italy, what are you sort of? I mean, we've talked a little bit about the pitfalls that you might and like the logistics of things and the legalities and things like that. But like, what's your favorite part? What was your favorite part about the nomadic lifestyle? What's your favorite part about being in Italy? I mean, I would say it's probably the food and the wine, but my sister also lives in northern Italy. So anytime I get a chance to visit, I'm there, but I think, yeah, I was sort of wondering, like, what are your favorite parts?
You know, the favorite part that is probably most unexpected for me is the friendships and the connections. I have been totally blown away, overwhelmed, surprised, and grateful for all of the connections. We live in a little mountaintop village of about 300 folks. Only about 200 live permanently year round. And our local village has accepted us. They're quite friendly. Now, you know, we don't have the 6 or 7 generations of history here like many of the families do, but they've been really friendly for us, and to us. And there's also a expat community around us, meaning,
Mm.
and you kind of become instant friends, almost like the military, because, you know, in the military, you're like, hey, we don't have time to waste. We've only got a 2-year assignment. Like, let's be friends. Come over for a cold beer. Let's meet. Let's have the kids play together. And here it's like I'm from the UK, or we have friends from Malaysia, from France, from Switzerland, from the Netherlands, and gosh, but from Belgium, from Germany, and we're all here with the kind of common tie that binds us is that we've all made a decision to settle, you know, within about 20 miles of where I live, and we're all friends, and we all get along, and we've got Italian connections and Italian friends. And I'm not surprised that my wife Shannon made friends because she's quite outgoing and, you know, she makes friends instantly. But having these connections for me has been wonderful. And it's so different than our military lives in that, like, our friends are photographers and accountants, and they had worked in retail, and they're retired lawyers. It's just such a different subset of society because in the military, we tend, you know, we're kind of forced grouping, right? We're kind of hanging
Yeah.
around ourselves. And as we change ranks, either on the officer side or the enlisted side, your kind of bubble gets smaller and smaller. Um, and and here I'm probably the only ex-military guy, you know, I don't know, within a 50-mile radius that I can imagine. And that's kind of wonderful because my friends, our group is just so unique and it's so different. And I've loved that. And of course, I love the food and the wine and being so connected to greater Europe. I mean, as you can imagine, you're only a train ride away. You're only about a 3-hour train ride from Florence. You're a 5-hour train ride from Rome. We can be in Nice, France, in like 3 hours. It's just so cool to be so close to so many historical things, and we really like that too as well.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. And I think it is, I mean, that parallel of like, whenever anybody asks me what my favorite place was that we were stationed in the military, it never has to do about the place. It has to do about the people.
people.
Right. So it seems very similar in that
Yeah,
respect.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
That's awesome.
Housing.
Well, I think we have, I mean, clearly we can continue talking about this subject because we're both intrigued and it's awesome. But I think we're going to go ahead and move to the second part of our podcast where we play little games, have a little
Okay.
fun. Not that this hasn't been fun. But so the first thing I'm going to ask you here is what's in your rucksack? So what would you take from, or what have you taken metaphorically or physically from your military lifestyle and to your civilian life? And then what have you really been happy to leave behind? Check out of the rucksack, not take it with you.
Okay, I think I'll start with the bad first, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What I've left behind is what I used to call the Sunday night anxiety. When I was active duty for those years, like I would think about Sunday night if it was during football season, that would always be kind of during the Sunday night football game. And I would start to feel a bit of a pit in my stomach, and I would go to bed and I would not sleep very well. I might wake up early. And it's because of the anxiety of the week that lay before me. I knew I had meetings, maybe I had outputs, maybe I had this or that, or maybe I had upcoming travel. And I used to always feel anxious on Sunday nights because I was like, oh my gosh, I've got just this bone crusher of a week coming up. And now I will tell you, I often don't even know when it's Sunday night.
That's the dream.
Sunday Night Blues. This
Yeah.
guy.
So I don't have the Sunday night blues or anxiety anymore, but I will say it, maybe that took a year or two to kind of really just totally fade away, and I really like that. And I was only kind of made aware of that I wasn't stressed about on Sunday nights maybe a year and a half ago when Shannon mentioned that. She's like, you're a lot on Sunday nights. And I was like, what? And she kind of played it back to me. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So, anyways, I've left that behind and I never want to see it again. So please, if you're a friend of mine, never schedule something for Monday morning because it might come back. And
Great point.
the one thing I think I've taken with me is the discipline, is the regiment. I think, I think sometimes that's an Achilles heel of military folks, is some of our regiment and some of our discipline. But gosh, still having that as a component in my retired life actually kind of it gives me a blanket of comfort, right? I feel accomplished, or even, yeah, I don't know, like slightly like proud of myself, when I and I'm at the gym on a Monday morning at 7 a.m. and I'm at the gym, 3 or 4 days a week. I feel quite accomplished by that. When I attend my Italian lessons, I feel quite accomplished knocking that out when I'm studying. Yeah.
Mm.
So I think it's that type of like repetition or regiment or discipline. It provides, I don't know, it provides a great framework, at least for
Yeah.
me, and has helped provide a little bit of structure and what can, because since I'm retired full time, I have total freedom, and I have found that I actually quite like a little bit of regiment and a little bit of the
Yeah.
discipline that comes with that.
It makes a lot of sense too, because as you mentioned earlier, being able to live within a specific income set without overspending takes discipline. It takes that structure, and being able to have that, that fire, that financial independence and retire early mindset and capability. It makes all the sense in the world that that's what you've kept. And it seems like it's working out really well for both of you.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's quite helpful that the fact that, the food prices are so much cheaper here than in the States. And at times the really good wine is the same price as like the bottled water. So that kind of helps, with the budget at the end of the month as well. So that's why I
Oh
kind
yeah.
of need
Yeah.
that's why I need the gym 3 or 4 times a week, I
Yeah,
think.
for sure.
Story. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate those perspectives, and I can certainly empathize and parallel both of those. So, very, very good, sir. Okay, so my turn. We're going to talk about Two Truths and a Lie military style. And our previous guests, Ben and Angela Jacobson, they talked to us about their time taking a year off once they both retired to travel the United States in an RV. So here are their three pieces of information. You get to guess which one is the lie, and then we'll
Okay.
give you the opportunity to share your three facts. And of course, we'll reveal it on our next episode where that guest will get the opportunity to determine which one is your lie. So, okay,
Okay.
Ben and Angela said, number one, while on their year long RV trip across the United States, Ben drove every single mile of the 23,000-mile trip that they took. Number two, since retirement, they've invested in a marijuana farm in Oregon and continue to advocate for for legalization in Idaho, where they currently live. Or number three, they were one of the first married couples to be able to PCS to that same location together in South Korea. Which one is the lie?
Hmm. I'm going to guess and say number two, the marijuana farm in Oregon might be the stretch.
Yep, that's correct. You got that
You
one.
got
So
it. You got it.
I think they set up a little bit of a softball, but yeah, pretty crazy that Ben drove all 23,000
I
miles.
mean, to be fair, I would make you. Love you.
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't surprise me because I think that would fit my scenario too as well.
I mean, they were pulling what, 55 feet?
Yeah, I think
No.
yeah, between the trailer and
Yeah.
the truck.
No.
Yeah.
No.
We, we actually considered the RV lifestyle in retirement. We considered it, but me thinking through and planning and stuff, I was like all the moving parts on a big truck, all the moving parts on like, a huge camper or trailer or whatever. I was like, no, I think I would
It
have
wouldn't be restful.
I would mentally
You would
break
still
down.
have the
I wouldn't have
Sunday
Sunday
night pit
blues.
of anxiety.
Yeah, I would have every night of the week blues, I think. So I would be too stressed out.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, over to you. So, what are your three facts that we can put out to our guests?
Okay. Well, one of the passions that we have been able to explore while living nomadically and retiring full time has been long distance hiking or multi-week hiking. Both Shannon and I, and we've often taken our little dog Winnie with us on several hikes. So one of my claim to fames, I guess, is that I have hiked across several countries. Several countries. I've hiked across border to border, or from coast to border, or coast to coast. So I'm going to name three countries, but one of them I have not hiked across. So, and the countries are Spain, Italy, and England. So one of those countries I have not walked across.
Wow.
Okay.
That's epic. And knowing the fact that you did the Pacific Crest Trail, so I know that you walked across the United States,
Yeah, and I left the United
between
States out. So I left the United States out because technically, because of a fire closure, I missed 130 miles of it. So I don't count that. I don't count that
Man.
close.
epic,
Awesome.
nevertheless. Okay, so we're going to give our guests the opportunity to guess which one of those countries, Spain, Italy, and the UK. And we'll let them guess that on our next episode. So,
Okay.
again, thank you so very much for being here. We really appreciate it. Grazie mille.
Yeah.
It's just really epic. And, again, being able to have been stationed with you, serve under your leadership as my wing commander at Offutt has been really epic. And the fact that we get to stay in touch with you and follow your epic adventures and learn about all the wonderful things you're doing has just been really, really, really great over the years. So thank you so much.
Next time we make it to Italy to see my sister, we'll have to definitely coordinate, make sure you're in town so we can see you guys too.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Mike. It was awesome to have you on. And for our listeners and watchers out there, please catch our episodes either on our YouTube channel, anywhere you find podcasts. You can also visit our website at thenexttourpodcast.com. And we're super happy to see everybody here. And we'll see you next time on the next tour. The views, opinions, and advice expressed by our guest on the next tour are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast, Andia, or any affiliated organizations. While we strive to provide helpful and accurate information, this podcast is for informational purposes only. We encourage listeners to consult with professionals or conduct their own research before making any significant decisions related to military transition or post-service life. The content is intended as guidance and personal perspective, not as official advice.